Have you ever wondered why, even after doing everything right, reading the books, taking the courses, meditating, journaling, practicing gratitude, you still feel like something is missing? Like you're doing all the inner work, but deep down, something just doesn't feel whole? You're not alone. In fact, this silent frustration is more common than most people realize. Many people, even the ones who seem spiritually advanced or emotionally aware, are quietly carrying around a sense of emptiness they can't explain. They feel like they're stuck in place, even though they've been working so hard to move forward. And the reason this happens isn't because they're doing something wrong. It's because there's a hidden trap that most people don't see. It looks like progress. It feels like growth. But in reality, it's a loop. A loop that keeps people chasing healing, chasing answers, chasing feelings, but never quite arriving at peace. And this isn't just an occasional problem. It's the core reason why so many people feel lost, tired, or incomplete even after years of personal development. I went through this myself for over 10 years. I followed every method, every path that promised peace, but nothing truly worked, not at the deepest level, until I finally understood the real reason why. And once you understand it too, things will start to shift, not because you found a new method to add to your routine, but because you'll stop needing to chase anything at all. You'll stop trying to become something more, and instead, you'll start becoming deeply free from the inside out, not just temporarily, not just when life is easy, but in a way that lasts, even when everything around you falls apart. We've all heard the word freedom. It's a word people use often and believe in deeply. As children, we long for freedom to play and explore. As teenagers, we crave the freedom to express who we are. As adults, we want the freedom to live life on our own terms. But here's the strange thing. Most people still don't feel free, even when they have all the choices in the world. They can travel, shop, speak their minds, and live however they want. But inside, they still feel trapped. Why is that? Because the real prison isn't outside of us. It's not in our circumstances, or our jobs, or our relationships. The real prison is inside. It hides in our racing thoughts, in our emotional reactions, in the fear that something might go wrong. It hides in our endless need to feel better, to be seen, to be loved, to succeed. It hides in the voice that keeps whispering, "You're not there yet." And as long as that voice is in control, no matter how free your life looks on the outside, you'll never truly feel free on the inside. Most people don't even realize they're stuck. They think they're making progress because they're doing all the right things. But all they've really done is move from one layer of illusion to another. They've gone from physical survival to emotional seeking, to intellectual understanding, to social approval. But they're still stuck in cycles. They just look more polished now. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's not being able to say what you want, buy what you want, or feel how you want. That's not freedom. That's being controlled by desire. Real freedom is the absence of needing anything to be okay. It's the quiet strength that stays with you even when things are uncertain. It's the calm that doesn't rely on emotions, results, or other people's reactions. It's not found by adding more. It's found by letting go of what keeps pulling you away from yourself. But to understand how we get to that kind of freedom, we have to look at how we've been living. Most people start life in what could be called survival mode. This is the first and most basic stage of human awareness. When we're babies, this is all we know. We cry when we're hungry, cold, or uncomfortable. We don't think. We don't reflect. We just react. And although we grow older, that same survival instinct never really leaves us. It lives quietly in the background, showing up in panic, anxiety, overthinking, and fear. It shows up when we worry about money, about safety, about the future. It shows up when we try to control every detail of our lives because we believe if we don't, something bad will happen. People who are stuck in this stage often don't realize it. They may have good jobs and stable lives, but they live in a constant state of tension. They're always bracing for something to go wrong. They have trouble trusting others. They stay in their comfort zones. They chase security and safety because they believe that's what will finally bring them peace. But no amount of control can calm the fear that lives inside. And as long as fear is in charge, you can't be free. Because fear and freedom can't exist in the same space. Eventually, people grow tired of just surviving. They start to want more than just safety. They want to feel alive. And this leads them into the next phase, the emotional stage. This is when people start chasing pleasure, excitement, connection, and happiness. It feels better than survival, but it also comes with its own trap. Emotions are temporary. What makes you happy today might not feel the same tomorrow. What brings joy now might bring sadness later. So people end up on an emotional roller coaster, riding the highs, avoiding the lows, and always chasing the next good feeling. You see it everywhere. People post on social media for attention. They buy things to feel excitement. They jump from one relationship to the next, hoping to find someone who will make them feel complete. And when those things don't work, they feel even more empty than before. Because the truth is, no feeling lasts forever. And when we build our lives around chasing emotions, we lose control. We don't feel stable. We react instead of respond. And no matter how much pleasure we get, we still don't feel whole. So we move again, this time into the mind. We start searching for answers. We read, we analyze, we try to figure everything out. This is when people enter the intellectual phase. They want to understand their lives. They want to know the why behind everything. They begin defining themselves by their beliefs, their logic, their ideas. And while this can bring clarity, it also creates a new prison, a prison of overthinking, a prison of ego. The mind wants certainty. It doesn't like the unknown. So it clings to conclusions and pushes away anything that doesn't fit its version of the truth. People start thinking things like, this is who I am, or this is what I believe, and they get stuck. They become rigid. They argue to be right. They fear being wrong. They fear not knowing. And without even realizing it, they've built a mental box around themselves, a fortress of thought that keeps life and real peace out. Because the mind can't answer every question. It can't solve every problem. It can't explain the unexplainable. Eventually, even the most intelligent people start to feel that same quiet emptiness. the same question comes up again. Why doesn't this feel like enough? So they move again, this time to relationships. They start focusing on being seen, being understood, being accepted. This is the social phase. They begin shaping their behavior around how others see them. They wear masks. They edit themselves. They act strong when they feel weak. They say what others want to hear. They perform instead of connect. And even when they get the attention they were looking for, it doesn't satisfy, because it's not based on truth. It's based on fear. The fear of not being good enough. The fear of being alone. The fear of being rejected. And then, finally, something inside begins to break. The person starts to feel tired, not just physically or emotionally, but spiritually. They've chased everything the world told them to chase. They've tried every path, followed every method, and yet that quiet emptiness remains. But this time, something is different. This time, they stop running. They stop reaching. They stop pretending. They start letting go. That is where true freedom begins. Not in adding anything, but in removing everything that isn't real. It's not about becoming more. It's about becoming less of what you're not. It's about letting go of the fear, the pressure, the old stories, the roles you've been playing. It's about stopping the chase and realizing you are already what you were searching for. This kind of freedom doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't depend on how much money you have, or how many people love you, or how much wisdom you can quote. It's the kind of freedom that stays with you in silence, in stillness, in moments when there's nothing left to prove. It's what's left when you finally stop needing anything to feel okay, when you stop seeking, when you stop trying to become something. And when that happens, what's left isn't emptiness, it's peace. Not the kind of peace that comes and goes, but the kind that stays no matter what. The kind of peace that says, I'm already whole. I always was. Have you ever caught yourself speaking differently when you're around certain people, like softening your voice when talking to your boss or someone important? Or maybe you've avoided telling someone what you truly think because you didn't want to start an argument or make things uncomfortable. Or perhaps you've shared something online not because you really wanted to, but because you hoped it would make others see you in a certain way. Interesting, smart, funny, confident. These moments might seem small, but they reveal something very deep about how we live. They show how much we've been shaped by the need to fit in, to be accepted, to belong. We begin to adjust ourselves not because we want to lie, but because we fear being rejected, ignored, or misunderstood. And slowly, without even realizing it, we start living in a way that's more about approval than honesty. As this pattern continues, we begin following the unspoken rules of society. What's considered proper, what looks good, what sounds smart, how we should act to be seen as normal, polite, or respectable. We start following these social norms, not because we believe in them from the heart, but because they seem safer than going against the flow. This kind of life feels comfortable at first. You feel like you're doing things right. You're accepted, liked, and maybe even admired. But there comes a point when something inside starts to question it all. Because while you might seem successful or well-liked on the outside, something on the inside starts to feel missing. It's like you've been wearing a mask for so long that you start to forget what your real face looks like. The world claps for the role you play, but when the show ends and you're alone, there's a quiet emptiness. That's the moment when a gentle discomfort begins to rise. Something inside whispers that approval from others will never fully satisfy you. You might have everything people say you should want: friends, a job, achievements, compliments, but still feel strangely restless. Because the truth is, you've been molding yourself to please others for so long that you've lost touch with who you really are. And that kind of life, no matter how shiny it looks, will always feel hollow underneath. What's really missing is freedom. The freedom to be exactly who you are without fear, without apology, without needing to perform or pretend. But this kind of freedom isn't given by society. It's something you have to reclaim for yourself. And to do that, you have to face the truth that much of what you've built might not be based on your true self, but on your need to be accepted. This moment of realization can feel both painful and powerful. Painful because it means acknowledging that you've been living in ways that don't feel real to you. Powerful because it means you're finally waking up. At first, this awakening might just be a quiet thought, a question that repeats in your mind. Something like, is this really me? Or, why does this feel empty? You might not know what to do with the feeling right away. You might even try to push it away. But once it starts, it's hard to ignore. And that's how the shift begins. Without knowing exactly where it's going to lead, you begin to pull away from the roles you've been playing. You start noticing how often you say yes when you mean no, how often you smile when you're tired, how often you agree just to keep the peace. You start to wonder what would happen if you stopped doing that. And even though it's frightening to think about being rejected or judged, the idea of continuing to live a lie starts to feel worse. So you slowly start choosing honesty, even if your voice shakes. You start choosing authenticity, even when it's uncomfortable. You begin to listen more closely to yourself, to your inner voice, your gut feelings, your quiet knowing. This is the beginning of real change. It's the moment when your attention turns inward. You stop living for the applause and start living for the truth. As this shift deepens, you begin to notice a new kind of guidance appearing within you. It's not loud like thoughts, not chaotic like emotions. It's quiet, subtle, and yet incredibly strong. It shows up in moments of clarity, when you suddenly know something without being able to explain why. You feel pulled toward a decision, a change, a path, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. This is intuition, and it's not something you create. It's something you uncover, something that's always been there, but was buried under the noise of trying to be who others expected you to be. You begin to trust this inner compass more than the opinions around you. You start paying attention to feelings that can't be explained, the sense that something is right or wrong without needing proof. And with this comes another powerful shift, the search for meaning. Not the kind of search that leads to fancy ideas or complex philosophies, but the kind of search that's personal, raw, and real. You want to know what matters. You want to understand why you feel the way you do. You want to find out who you are beneath all the layers. This leads many people to explore things like meditation, stillness, journaling, quiet moments alone, or deep conversations. Not because it's trendy or popular, but because the old ways of living just aren't enough anymore. The distractions don't satisfy. The surface level joys don't last. So you go deeper, not because you're trying to escape life, but because you're trying to finally meet it face to face. And as you do, you begin to experience moments that feel different, more real, more peaceful, more connected. But even here, there's still something holding on. The idea of yourself as someone who is on a journey, someone who is waking up, someone who is growing. This can become its own kind of role. The ego can wear the mask of the wise person, the one who understands, the one who is evolving. And this too can become a trap because it still separates you from others. It still creates an identity that says, I am more aware, even if you don't say it out loud. So while this stage feels meaningful, it's still not the end. It's a step, an important one, but still part of the process. Eventually, something shifts again. You start to feel connected to others in a way you didn't before. Not just the people you like, but everyone. You begin to feel the joy of others as your own, and their pain touches your heart as if it were yours. You stop needing to judge or label people. You just see them as they are. The world doesn't look as separate anymore. You start to realize we're all made of the same stuff, just experiencing life in different ways. And this kind of love that starts to grow in you isn't emotional or dramatic. It's quiet and steady. It doesn't come and go. It's just there. You feel more peace, even when life is hard. The constant noise in your mind begins to fade. You don't need to control everything anymore. You don't take things so personally. You can enjoy things without clinging to them. You can let go without feeling lost. You're more present, more open, more accepting. But even in this deep peace, there's still one final shift waiting. Because even now, there's still a you who is experiencing it all. A quiet observer who still stands slightly apart from life, watching, noticing, understanding. And that means there's still a little bit of separation. It's very subtle, but it's there. Some people stop here, and it's easy to understand why. Life feels good. The suffering has softened. There's love, calm, clarity. But for those who feel a deep call to go even further, there is one more layer to let go of. The last layer is the self, the need to be anything or anyone at all. The roles, the labels, the stories, even the idea of being a peaceful or wise person, all of it can be released. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. You no longer feel like someone living life. You just feel like life itself. You stop needing to seek anything. You stop needing to define anything. You stop needing to be on a path. You just are. This isn't something you can force. It happens when the need to hold on finally disappears, when the questions dissolve, when the search ends, when you're no longer reaching for something else. In that stillness, you discover something that was always there, pure presence, not an idea, not an experience, just being, simple, whole, complete. You still live your life. You still talk, walk, eat, rest. But now, it's effortless. There's no weight, no pretending, no trying, no identity to protect. You're not above anyone. You're not special. You're just free. This kind of freedom isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, gentle. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't care how it looks. It's not something you show to others. It's something you feel inside. A stillness that stays, no matter what's happening outside. And this stillness isn't earned. It's what you've always been underneath everything you've believed about yourself. This is the final stage, not a destination, not a reward, not a peak, just the place you return to when everything false has been dropped. And now the question isn't, what should I do? But simply, can I let myself be? And in that simple being, everything is enough. Maybe you're just beginning. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Maybe you've touched this quiet space now and then. Wherever you are is exactly where you're meant to be. This isn't a race. There's no final grade. No one watching with a checklist. Just your own heart, gently asking for honesty. And if you can sit with that question long enough, you'll see the next step isn't something you take. It's something that finds you when you stop running. And in that stillness, everything unfolds.